Durham on Comey's culpability. The report shows FBI headquarters ignored all the rules in the Trump-Russia probe. The Federal Bureau of Investigation received some shocking intelligence in 2018, suggesting the Russians might have compromised Christopher Steele's sources even before the opposition researcher began feeding his infamous dossier to the FBI. Just as shocking was the edict that came next. According to Special Counsel John Durham's report, the team reviewing the intelligence was told in a meeting with a top member of the Trump-Russia collusion probe to be careful because issues relating to Steele were under intense scrutiny. Dina Corsi, the Deputy Assistant Director for Counterintelligence, then ordered that findings be reported only orally. One FBI lawyer told the Durham team it was the most inappropriate operational or professional statement he'd ever heard at the FBI and that he was so appalled, he walked off the review. The lawyer didn't know exactly who'd given the order but said Ms. Corsi was speaking for FBI leadership. Readers won't find many direct quotes in the report from former Director James Comey or former Deputy Director Andrew McCabe. Both refused to cooperate with Mr. Durham. Mr. Comey has publicly distanced himself from events, honing his mastery of "I don't recall." The Durham report gives the lie to this claim, which in turn explains what went wrong. The Trump probe was run by the seventh floor, by two men who were thrilled to be playing political kingmakers, and who broke all the rules. The roots of the collusion investigation were planted in early April 2016, when Mr. Comey requested from underlings relevant information pertaining to any presidential candidate. He was already deep in the Hillary Clinton email probe. The report says that he was then briefed that the New York field office was looking at recently named Trump advisor Carter Page. It wasn't concerned about Page so much as the Russians reaching out to him. Yet the Page case and ones like it became a top priority for Director Comey. When the FBI got wind in July 2016 of a conversation between another Trump advisor and an Australian diplomat, Mr. McCabe ordered FBI agent Peter Strzok to skip all preliminary steps and launch a full counterintelligence investigation. Similarly, when the FBI received separate information from a Clinton attorney claiming a secret Trump server communicating with Russia, FBI leadership intervened to order a full probe, even though both cyber agents and Chicago-based agents were skeptical. One agent explained, "People on the seventh floor to include Director are fired up about this server." McCabe would tell an inspector general that Mr. Comey was getting daily briefings on this stuff. Compare this with Mr. Comey's later interview with Fox News' Brett Baier in which he suggested he was only vaguely aware of details. All this was then centralized in FBI headquarters. Line agents early on wanted to interview Mr. Page, a step agents said made only too much sense and the Durham report says would likely have put the whole issue to rest. They were prohibited by Messrs. Comey and McCabe, who remained fixated on getting a secret surveillance warrant on Mr. Page. The attorney prepping that application recalled being constantly pressured by management to push it through, being told that Mr. Comey wants to know what's going on, while Mr. McCabe exhorted to get this going. When a Deputy Assistant Attorney General raised concerns with the application's reliance on Mr. Steele, given his work as a Clinton Oppo researcher, supporters of the warrant went straight to Messrs. Comey and McCabe, who said to move ahead despite his concerns. The Durham report is littered with agents recalling their frustration that they were excluded from the flow of information and decision-making process and steamrolled when they objected to unjustified inquiries. One agent was told in 2017 that his primary job was renewing the Page surveillance application. Yet his team didn't believe Mr. Page to be a threat and thought the investigation a dry hole. When he told his superior, he was ignored and directed to continue. That supervisor told the Durham team it wasn't normal and she did not know why the seventh floor was so involved, but felt her boss, counterintelligence head Bill Priestap, was not in charge and had to get approvals from the brass. Mr. Priestap told Durham investigators that it drove him insane that his own underlings, Mr. Strzok and Lisa Page, went around him to the seventh floor whenever he disagreed with their approach. In 2018, as mistakes began to come to light, that seventh floor ordered a review team to stop writing things on paper. Some are responding to the Durham report with calls to dismantle the FBI. But the report shows the rank and file doing exactly what the FBI is supposed to do: question, verify. The fault rests with an arrogant leadership that discarded the usual layers of oversight, a seventh floor that took charge with no regard for rules, little care for the truth, and no accountability from above. Durham on Comey's culpability. The report shows FBI headquarters ignored all the rules in the Trump-Russia probe. The Federal Bureau of Investigation received some shocking intelligence in 2018, suggesting the Russians might have compromised Christopher Steele's sources even before the opposition researcher began feeding his infamous dossier to the FBI. Just as shocking was the edict that came next. According to Special The survivors of Putin's atrocities have a warning for U.S. Those who argue that Russian President Vladimir Putin should be allowed to keep parts of Ukraine should meet the survivors of his atrocities. They know firsthand the horror of life under Russian occupation. Their stories remind us of what Ukraine is fighting for, and what the free world is standing against. Anna Zaitseva was a 24-year-old schoolteacher in Mariupol when Russian forces attacked her city in the first days of the invasion in February 2022. She and her 3-month-old son took refuge in the Azovstal iron and steel works plant, where her husband, Kirilo, worked. A former soldier, Kirilo left his family bunkered there and joined the local defense forces, known as the Azov Regiment. Zaitseva brought enough diapers and food to last a few days. Zaitseva and her son were trapped inside the plant for 65 days, enduring constant Russian shelling. They emerged only to find their hometown destroyed, but their ordeal was just beginning. She and her baby were evacuated via a supposed safe corridor that was anything but safe. The Russians regularly attacked civilians who were trying to get out of the city. During Zaitseva's own evacuation, Russian forces bombed a building she was in and Ukrainian soldiers had to dig her out. Zaitseva was then taken to a filtration camp run by the Russian army. There, she was strip-searched, forced to hand over all of her electronics, and told to leave her baby in her captor's care. She refused. She was interrogated about her husband, but she didn't know his whereabouts. Only through a YouTube video did she learn that Kirilo had been taken into captivity, on a stretcher, when the steel plant fell. The last time they spoke on the phone was 11 months ago. "I don't even know if he's alive," she told me in an interview last week in Washington. Now a refugee in Germany with her son and mother, she still shudders whenever she hears a helicopter. She has no idea when she will be able to return home, if ever. Meanwhile, she is traveling the world with a message: don't abandon the Ukrainians living on the Russian side of the front lines. People in the West are tired of this topic, sure, she said. But could you think about the people in captivity? Are they tired or not? Zaitseva came to